Welcome to the show with your friend and mine. So tell me, Dr. Squee, who's it gonna be this time? We like to hear you talk, and we love to hear you listen. And if you are not subscribed, you won't know what you're missing. So welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Headphones up. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. I'm Dr. Squee and this is my show. Hope you're all well today. Guys, just a very quick aside, but you kind of like create something and it's wonderful and you think it's really great. And then you kind of create something better and you look back at it. That's very much how I'm feeling about the credits of this show. You're going to have an upgrade soon. I've been working on sort of like some upgraded videos for the show, make it look a bit more all singing, all dancing. So I was so proud of that when I made it. It's just so funny how these things move on. Anyway, I very much digress. Today, I am welcoming... So last time I did an interview, it was with Ray O'Leary from Taskmaster New Zealand, as well as many other wonderful projects. I went to see him live the other week, and I was lucky enough to see his support act, and she was kind enough to come on this show. So that's what we're welcoming today. So please welcome the New Zealand comedian who's known as the girl with the squeaky voice, now living in the UK, and fresh from working with Taskmaster New Zealand and friend of the show, Ray O'Leary. And her video is playing up a little bit, so sorry if we can't see. You might just have a blurred lined image of her. Hopefully it'll crack back in. But please welcome to the Dr. Squee Show, Becky Umbers.
Hello.
How are you doing today, Becky?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. I mean, it's great to welcome the first member of Anonymous New Zealand to the show. We haven't had any of you on before.
Yeah, I'm just a blank screen. How exciting.
You can use this sort of like as a kind of like, new mysterious Becky Umbers.
Yeah, you could put maybe people already think I've got some kind of voice disguiser on. This is just how I sound.
We may as well address that straight because I sort of loved looking up how you're kind of like described online. So your kind of self-descriptor seems to be the girl with the squeaky voice. I believe that's from you originally.
I feel like I have to get to it quickly.
And there was someone else who put a review on Facebook, and it was it's nice, but it's like she's funny, lovely, and doesn't swear much, which is like seems somehow a very British review. I don't know why. It just seems very. But she doesn't swear much, so that's good. You can take your kids. How do you find your kind of like how do you describe yourself other than squeaky voice, and how do you find kind of does the swearing less kind of affect what kind of audience you get?
I feel like as I've gone on, I've begun to swear more, but I feel like I don't. I think I swear when it's necessary, like I only drop the C-bomb if it's like that's the punchline that someone has said that or something. But I do use the F word a lot, I think, and I think I try not to use it, use it sparingly. But I think I guess with my sort of little voice, it gets more of a like whoa. And that's been said to me before, actually. Like Guy Williams said to me, he was like, Becky, it's just so funny hearing you swear. Like it just feels like hearing a child swear.
And it might just be what, like, first of all, I do love that as well. I love this sort of juxtaposition when someone's, like you say, you've got kind of a higher voice, and then swearing is just so much more fun. Guy Williams, just since you bring him up. Like, it might just be the guests I've had on from New Zealand and then the people I've kind of experienced through the Taskmaster. Obviously, there's the link there. But it's Guy Williams. Like, I'm starting to think he's the kind of sort of linchpin underneath a New Zealand comedy.
Yeah, I guess so. He's one of the big ones and sort of been going for quite a while. He started back with like Jono and Ben, and he's been going ages. And yeah, he's very well known and a lovely guy. So, and I think, everyone, the New Zealand comedy scene is so small. Everyone is friends with everyone. So it's pretty big names, you think. People are like, oh, well, you know them. And you're like, well, yeah. Like, you gig for 2 months in New Zealand, you'll be on the lineup with them too, because there's not that many of us.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, any New Zealand shows I kind of catch, it's always it's like yeah, don't worry. There's five of us New Zealand community. Like there's always some sort of crack about it in the show somewhere.
Yeah, you got to
And,
mention it.
oh god, and just yeah, I don't know. I just get very jealous. It's like you've got such a relatively small population to so much landmass, and it's just such a beautiful country. And you chose the UK. What happened there?
I know, crazy. Oh, I was actually born in Oxford, so my
Okay.
mum's English. Well, I guess that means I'm also English, part English. We moved to New Zealand when I was 3. So I've got the passport, and yeah, this is kind of the home of comedy. This is what I grew up. I grew up watching Porridge and Live at the Apollo and 8 out of 10 Cats, and so to come, it is a classic Kiwi thing to do, is to come to the UK for a few years, hone your craft, and then go back way better. Or come here for a few years and then stay here, like Rose Matafeo, or Nick Sampson, or so it's just the home of comedy, and there's so much more comedy here to see. Like it's crazy to me that I still go to lineups and see comedians I've never seen before, and I've been living here like a year and a half now, gigging every week, like several days a week. And there's just so many different styles of comedy, and the standard is so high. The standard is also high in New Zealand, I think, but isn't there also isn't the you can't gig as much in New Zealand because there just isn't the population to sell tickets to that many shows.
Fair
So
enough. Yeah, it is 3 people per town, I believe, is the setup. Yeah.
yeah, 3 people, 50 sheep, and that's a town.
And I do sort of like I love the fact that the New Zealand sense of humor, because like as I say, it was sort of Taskmaster New Zealand was sort of a gateway to all these wonderful New Zealand comedians. I think that's one of the beauties of Taskmaster, is that it's such a showcase. It's one of those shows, but it just sent me down a rabbit hole of finding all these wonderful comedians. And the sense of humor for New Zealand, I think what they've done wonderfully with a lot of shows which we've got over here, which are also in New Zealand, perfectly adapted for the market. But I think the sense of humor works just so well. So like a lot of shows do translate between here and New Zealand, whereas like in America, they sort of try turning everything into a game show, which doesn't always necessarily work. How have you found the kind of differences and similarities between the sort of senses of humor?
Yeah, I think it does. It does translate, and it is different to American. I think at home as well, people kind of have this idea of, I'd say most New Zealand comics have grown up watching a lot of UK comedy or a lot of American comedy. People do either watch, a bit of both, or people kind of pick a style that they like and they watch a lot of that. But I feel like, a lot of people grow up watching the UK comedy, and so that kind of trickles down, and we are a colony, so we were colonized by England, so it makes sense that there'd be
We don't like to talk about that too much. I mean, America's good on the colonization. I believe they're stepping into the colonization game, so I think we're off. It's their problem.
But yeah, so I think I think it does translate. I think it's that classic kind of I think the thing is both UK and New Zealand can find the American style of being very like bold and brash, kind of jarring, and so I think that's the common ground between England and New Zealand is the whole kind of like, don't be too much of a show off.
Yes, like in America, it is that kind of hard baked into the American dream of like, you can always be like, you can be the best thing in the world. UK, and it seems like New Zealand is like, you're fine, that's right. It's just don't brag too much,
We'll don't get carried away.
Like if you're doing well, at least say something self-deprecating about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So a absolutely wonderful night the other night in the Attic here in Southampton. I'm sort of down the road in a little town called Romsey, but that's not here or there. But wonderful night in the Attic the other night with you and Ray O'Leary. How was it working with Ray? And were you with him for the full tour? Were you just kind of on selected dates around the area?
Yeah. I was with him for the full 3 weeks, which is fun. A lot of time spent on trains together. But me and Ray have been friends for a while, so it was really fun to travel around and do loads of cool rooms that I wouldn't obviously normally get the the chance to do by myself. So yeah, it was great.
And had you done like so you've done a kind of a few tours? You said it was 2.5 years. Did you say you've been in the UK?
1.5.
1.5. Sorry, pardon me. So yeah, I mean, it's how does it kind of change when you're doing your own tours and where you're kind of like supporting someone else, and what's the dynamic like touring with someone?
Oh, it's lovely. I mean, touring by yourself would be so boring and lonely, like you're in a different place each night. And especially for Ray, like he's not from England, hasn't spent much time in England. So it's not like he knows people in these towns. And, if he was at home, he'd say, oh, I'm in Tauranga this week and I know someone there. So I'll pop in and see them after the show. It would be like, okay, I'll go either chat to my fans outside, which Ray does love doing, or I'll just go back to my hotel by myself.
I mean, Ray,
touring by yourself would suck.
I obviously adored Ray. Kind of just such a lovely guy. Really nice to meet him in person. It's sort of such a weird kind of thing. I do sometimes meet people in person. I do some sort of stage interviews, but so often, like with here, I'm just interviewing across the internet, so I don't get to meet them. Ray, I think, is in the most lovely way. He's one of the comedians who I think, or people I've met who I've interviewed, who seems almost more grateful to meet you than you are to meet it. And I was very grateful to meet the wonderful man. But it's just, I love his kind of energy. It's just so kind of just grateful for everything.
And it kind of took me by surprise. Him and Mel Bracewell, who I'm touring with at the moment, both do it. And we'll be like, oh, if you want to say hello after the show, I'll come out. And I feel so silly doing it, being like, oh God, they don't want to talk to me. Like, that's so presumptuous of me being like, do you want to talk to me? But people do want to not talk to you like, whoa, you're this big thing. I mean, in part it is, some people do want to talk to Mel and Ray like that because they are these big stars, but it is also just like, you're just meeting new people. And it's so nice to see, he's on the other side of the world and he's kind of just like, he's so grateful that people have come to see him. He's like, why are you here? Kind of thing. Like, I want to know what you're doing here. Yeah,
it's absolutely wonderful. And one of the shows which seems to come up a lot when I'm again looking into sort of New Zealand comedians is 7 Days, which I believe is your version of Mock the Week, if that's correct.
Yes. Yeah.
What's that kind of show like? It's, as I say, it seems to be another one of these kind of great showcase shows, as it is in the UK, or was. It's finished over here a few years ago. And do you like kind of shows like that where you can just play about with material and it's just kind of working on the fly?
Yeah, controversially, most comics sort of don't love panel shows. They like doing their solo shows and they do the panel shows to sell tickets and, boost their profile. I love doing panel shows. It's my favorite part of the whole job, which is it's like you're just hanging out with, I mean, this is classic. It may be different in the UK or America, but in New Zealand, everyone on the comedy scene, in the sort of top, the good circles. And so you're just hanging out with your friends and making jokes together. And then it just happens to be filmed. It's, like Jeremy Corbett hosts and he is the nicest man in television. He is so unnecessarily nice. And so he's there and you're all just hanging out and you hang out backstage and then you kind of do the same thing in front of the cameras. You just bounce off each other and chat and it's so much fun.
Do you mind me out? Like, I don't like to do this too often because I don't like to sort of ask about someone else through the person I'm interviewing too much. But there's one comedian which I can be absolutely fascinated with. Again, one of my kind of big frame references is Taskmaster New Zealand. Abby Howells. Have you worked with her at all?
Because she's great. So funny.
Oh, just in like last year in October, I got diagnosed with ADHD, suspected autism, and I've grown up with dyslexia. So I'm trying to, I'm like the Pokemon hunter of neurodivergency. I'm trying to catch them all. I'm going to go for dyspraxia next, I think. But joking aside, it's like I thought she was just a wonderful example of sort of like one of a better phrase, autistic joy and kind of celebration. Like she talks about it, but it's like it's very celebratory and it's just so wonderful. Can you just talk a bit about working with her if you don't mind?
Oh, well, so the thing is, because me and Abby are kind of similar I guess similar not characters, but we are young women who are kind of upbeat. We do not get put on the same lineups very often. We
Right.
unfortunately don't get to work together that often. But when we do, it's so much fun. She's such a lovely girl, and she is so funny. She is so clever, and such a joy to watch. So yeah, it's just great to see her because obviously she took a break, and I didn't know her before when she did comedy before.
Yeah.
So then she came back, and I was like, who is this girl? Like, she is so good. Obviously she wasn't brand new. Had already been doing comedy. And I was just like, I need to be friends with her. She's so cool, and she is so lovely. And yeah, it's just been cool, great seeing her get the props she deserves and sort of killing it everywhere.
It's just so nice. I guess like, at the time it was sort of perfect time because like, it's just when you're looking for sort of for information, for kind of I guess positive role models, just to see her going out there and kind of it's just nice to see so much celebration around neurodivergency, which sometimes doesn't get the love. So thank you for indulging me on that one.
No worries.
So I wanted to talk about kind of some of the earlier stuff. So you got the best debut at New Zealand International Comedy Festival in 2019, or as one website wonderfully put it, they just missed out a word, so that you won the best debut act at Comedy Festival.
Oh,
at Comedy Festival. I was like, is that the name? Is it like a sort of like... Anyway,
it's sorry, just the festival I set up in my garage and gave myself the award.
It's just Comedy Festival.
It's a comedy festival. You don't need to know which one. It's just there's one.
Oh, what kind of area? I mean, it's kind of local to me, funnily enough.
He goes to another school.
Firstly, I do have to say, because you've already said that you grew up watching 8 of 10 Cats, so I do have to say damn you for being so young and having so many accolades so early. I'm sure that's a hate crime to someone of my age, but anyway, that's not important right now. How long have you been working in comedy? Had you been working at comedy when you kind of got that award? And what was the sort of like journey from your early career to winning that award like? And was it kind of fairly early on?
Oh, yeah, it was kind of early. I guess I've been going about 7 years now. So yeah, I am fairly young in the comedy life cycle. But I think I must have been going less than 2 years when I got that. I had quite a fairly quick start, not crazy quick, like I didn't go viral on social media or anything. But I did have I didn't realize I entered the Raw competition and I didn't realize it was a Raw competition. I just thought I'll try comedy. But obviously I'd been working on this set for, to be honest, years. So I came with this. I did communications at uni and I did like a couple performance papers, and that's when my tutor was like, you should do comedy, expect to do a performance. And I mean, that was a year at least before. And so, but I'd been working on these jokes most of my life, you write these things down and you think, I'll never actually be a comedian, but it's just good to have these things written down. And so I already had quite a sort of fully formed set, I guess. And then, my first gig, Scott asked me back to the classic, and then my second gig he said, oh, you're through to the semi-finals. And I was like, semi-finals of what? Like, what? And that was the Raw competition. So the Raw comedy competition final was like my 4th ever gig.
Wow.
Which is crazy. But I kind of like to think I didn't just come in and like I wasn't just naturally so good at comedy. It was like I had been secretly squirreling away all these jokes for ages. And then I think it was the next year that I won Best Debut, which I also didn't even know I was eligible for. Didn't even know that was an award. And then I was just at the sort of last laughs party where they hand out awards, and I thought, oh, there's awards, that's nice. And then they said my name, and I was like, what?
Wow.
So it was lovely.
And do you find with like because you mentioned before about something I didn't really consider, that you and Becky don't get on the same lineups because of kind of similar, sort of seen as similar types. I'm sure kind of your comedy is very different, but I could understand in a smaller market over in New Zealand why they kind of want to highlight kind of differences, I guess. So between that and oh yeah, sorry. It's
No,
where I
no,
don't
that's
have the
fine.
video. It's so frustrating. but, yeah, but yeah, where they got well, yeah, we've got that kind of, and you also said that, and winning the awards so early on, is there kind of a sort of change to the route, I guess, like a different route in New Zealand to the UK? Like, have I asked that question so it makes any sense?
I think so. Do you mean like as in the route, the sort of how you
Well, it's
go
like,
up in comedy?
yeah, I mean, like you mentioned that you tend to know the kind of other comedians on the circuit really well across the country, and like I wonder if kind of is there a kind of a if you do hit, are you more
prohibition?
likely to hit earlier? Is there kind of like different things like like you say about kind of being put on the bills with certain people because of the kind of smaller comedy scene?
Yeah, yeah. So that is something I'm really grateful to the New Zealand comedy scene is
Mm,
like I found over here, you have all these circuits that operate completely independent of each other. You know, like you've got the raw circuit, which is rookies, and then you've got sort of that
right.
open mic circuit, and then you've got maybe the middle circuit, which is like working comedians, but none of them are on TV, and then you've got the like pro TV circuit, and they all operate because there's so many comedians, there's no crossover or very little crossover. Whereas in New Zealand, there's hardly any gigs. So like Di Henwood does the Big Wednesday at the Classic, which is like the open new material night. And I was doing Big Wednesdays also. So you do the raw nights and then you get moved up. I think maybe it goes the late show, then you get to do the late show, and then you get to do the Big Wednesday show. So you're kind of doing that within your first year,
Wow.
and then you're on the same lineup as Di Henwood, which is like crazy.
And this will probably get to a more coherent question than the last one, but it's like how is that like? Because sorry, I've made a little list of the kind of awards you got early doors. Early doors over the last few years, because you're that young. It's just that recent. But anyway, finalist, Fringe Act of the Year, Edinburgh Fringe 2023, so a couple of years ago. Winner Best Debut New Zealand International Comedy Festival, nominated for Best Newcomer New Zealand Comedy Guild Award, nominated for Breakthrough Comedian Northern Ireland New Zealand Comedy Guild,
Oh yeah, North Island.
and Best Female Comedian New Zealand Comedy Guild Awards 2022 as well. Like, having all that happen in such a compressed period of time, and when you're so young, what's it like kind of just processing that? And like I feel like that with a UK comedian would happen over some years, and you'd kind of have time to process it and kind of like work things up as your audience is building up. It feels like you're like right, you've made it, great, here's all your audience, go. It's like what's that like, that journey? It must be wild.
I mean, they're not really big deal awards, to be honest, because they're just
Okay.
little New Zealand awards. You know, they don't feel like a big deal. So it doesn't. Even the best debut, I was like, oh wow, that's so nice. And then I come over here, and awards really mean something over here, I think. Whereas
Yeah,
at home, it maybe feels like it. And I've heard other comics make the jokes about New Zealand. You know, like there's another comedian I was gigging with, and they said their mum used to be an Olympic swimmer, but for New Zealand, you know. So it was like, it was, you get bronze if you just can get in the pool, kind of thing. Because there's so few people, I guess, and I think maybe that is also to do with the New Zealand kind of tall poppy syndrome. Is you're like, well, don't get too carried away, don't be. You got to be humble.
I give you all that build up, and you're like, yeah,
yeah.
It's in New Zealand.
No, so I guess
it's not like a British Comedy Award, you know.
Yes, I guess it didn't really feel like, wow, this is crazy, because you kind of don't celebrate things like that as much in New Zealand. But yeah, thanks. It is nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've had like crazy success super fast. You know, like over 7 years. You know, I only started getting 7 days 3 years ago.
Right.
And TV appearances, 3 years ago, I think. So I guess I'd been going for 4 years, which I guess doesn't seem like that long. But I worked really hard. And so I kind of just was like, and you just get things one at a time, Oh, actually, there was a point where I was like, oh my gosh, it's all happening at once. But then I left and I moved here. So to be humbled Absolutely.
Okay, I think that's definitely our shared self-deprecating style. It's like, oh, things are going really great here. I better leave. You know, I'm going off to the UK where it'll be more difficult again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and that is the shame about New Zealanders because we don't have the population and I guess the funds. There is only so far you feel like you can go in New Zealand sometimes because there just isn't the funding for lots of different shows and that kind of thing. So it is nice to come here and do all these crazy things that you just wouldn't be able to do in New Zealand because there's just not the population to sustain it.
And like it's so, you know, I'm kind of fascinated by this now. So did like you know, it's from UK comedians which I've interviewed over the years and some Americans. It seems like there is that experience of the kind of awards and the TV appearance, and that's what kind of accelerates your career and your audiences. Is there any change as a result of that? How kind of does it work building up your audience in New Zealand?
Yeah, so I think like here it kind of goes, awards and then TV appearances and then you tour with your solo show, right? So you go to Edinburgh, you get a great show together and then you tour around the country. Whereas in New Zealand, if you wanted to tour with a solo show, you could maybe go to 4 cities, you know, like you could go Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, Hamilton, maybe Dunedin, and that's kind of the only places. You know, it's hard to sell tickets. We also don't have the culture of as much. Comedy is still fairly new in New Zealand. You know, it was only like the 90s, sort of 80s, that it became a real thing, and we just don't have the culture of going out and to these things because I guess outdoors is so nice already. You know, you don't really go indoors that much, and so it is harder to sell tickets and sort of fund yourself that way. So yeah, a lot of New Zealand comedians, you sort of start, you do the awards and then you do the TV shows and you grow your audience maybe online, and then you have to add other strings to your bow. You know, like most New Zealand comedians have other skills. You know, like Tim Batt is an amazing podcaster and now has a podcast studio and all that kind of things. Like even James Roque is a really good video editor, and Jermaine Ross does loads of video editing, but are also amazing comedians. But yeah, everyone kind of diversifies a little bit, or they work in radio, or because it can all change as well. Like just after I moved here, all the main a couple big TV shows just got cancelled. I don't know if you heard, we cancelled the news. The news stopped. We lost funding for the news, so there's only now one news. Yeah, so there is one news that
I mean, this is certainly a time in the whole world where you certainly want less news, like less reliable news out there. I think we're all fine. Yeah, one's fine.
Yeah, there's not much going on, is there? So
yeah, I mean, if it's Fox, that would be like, you know, ship from America, that would be ideal. Yeah, just perfect. Yeah, no problems there.
Yeah, so we used to have the Channel 1 News and 3 News, and Channel 1 is sort of the government funded TV body, and Channel 3 is a sort of privately owned, and there's just not much money in TV, and I mean, you can't sell heaps of advertising when they're like, oh, what's the possible audience for this? And it's like, wow, 200,000, because, you know, the population is not that big. And so, so like the Channel 3 News got shut down, and the project show I used to work on, which a lot of comedians worked on, that was kind of your regular income and stuff, that also got shut down. So yeah, you have to diversify, I guess, in New Zealand, because it can all go quite quickly. It's on a knife edge. But I mean, having said that, people are doing some great stuff, and people at home seem to be having a lovely time still.
I mean, it's like, for some reason, I've just got this image in my head from some of the stuff you've said, like, Channel 3 News, they were going like, you know what? I reckon the other guy's got it covered. You know, we're good. You know,
yeah.
Pardon that awful accent, by the way.
Yeah, it's very Australian.
Yeah, I heard it straight away, and I was like, oh fuck! I can't switch halfway through the accent, like through the through the thing. I also kind of love. I never considered the reason probably why we've got such a vibrant and wonderful comedy scene here in the UK is because we've got shitty weather. It's just the rain. Yeah. That's the only reason.
Yeah. I forgot, and I was like, and then people say, "Oh, it's a really sunny day, so no one's going to come into the comedy show." And I was like,
"Never worry,
there's so few sunny sunny days. So you would be like, shit, get outside.
Yeah, like there's one day where you have to worry about that in the UK per year. Otherwise, you're fine.
Yeah.
It's great. So are there any other sort of strings to your bow? Any other things you like to do creatively alongside the comedy?
Gosh, I actually quite enjoy having a day job at the moment. So at the moment, I work a couple days a week as a teaching assistant, just sort of when I'm not busy with comedy, and it kind of grounds me a bit, which is nice. I do other stuff like oh my god, I'm still working on my podcast, which is so embarrassing. It's been like 2 years, and I haven't released the other episodes. But so you have to. I used to be a copywriter. That was my main job. But yeah, I quite like having a sort of a 9 to 5, 1 or 2 days a week, because I think it grounds me and it helps me. It stops me from getting caught up in the comedy spiral. I think comedy is one of those jobs where you can give your whole life to it, and you get so swept up in like comedy is the be all and end all. And if I have a bad gig, then I'm a bad comedian and my life is over. Whereas if I have a bad gig and then I go to a school, play with some kids the next day, and I forget all about it, and then I just go to it's a job. So it helps me treat comedy more like a job, I think.
And who's the most childish, the children you work with or UK audiences? It could be
the comedians, I reckon.
Actually, good answer. So and something you mentioned before, which kind of like really hit me, is like you're saying about there's different comedy kind of scenes or comedy, I forget what word I'm looking for, but anyway, different kind of like, so there's a young comedian scene, a different comedian scene for kind of more established in New Zealand, whereas the UK, it's more like just go out there and good luck. It's like it feels like there isn't that many kind of like different routes. How is it stepping into such a competitive market? How do you kind of get those early gigs? How do you get sort of established when you first come over to the UK? It's like such a small country with such a big comedy scene.
Yeah, such a big comedy scene. And like even friends at home have been like, oh, it looks like you're killing it, on social media. And I am gigging a lot, but there's still so many clubs that I want to get in with that I am not in with yet. And like there's just so much to keep chipping away at, I guess. And yeah, it's kind of intimidating. I still do gigs because you're just looking for like any and all gigs sometimes. And you go, oh, this person's done that gig, maybe that's good. So then you hit up that gig and then they give you a spot and then you get there and it's like the room above a pub and there's 3 people and the other comedians are terrible. And you're like, oh God, okay, this was the wrong one. This isn't one I need to get established with. And then you go to gigs and then everyone's great. And you're like, this is a good one. So it is kind of hard to figure out which ones are the good ones because you just have nothing to go off, really. Well, I mean, you probably do, but I just haven't figured it out yet.
I mean, what with like there was a time when there was the huge comedy boom, I want to say in the sort of like early 2000s, late 90s, where like Jongleers were everywhere, and it was just suddenly like it's the one time I remember it just seemed like there was a comedy club at least in every major city and in some towns. Now it's kind of interesting what's happened, because so we've just got the Attic here, which I saw you at, which is a wonderful venue, but there's a lot of kind of like so very quickly, I essentially moved back to my hometown to help my mum after she had a fall and broke her hip last year. And well, thank you very much. Sorry. But yeah, it's I just say that by way of like, I'm suddenly like around Romsey's kind of like a small market town. And the idea of having a comedy scene here seemed kind of like bonkers to me from what we had. Like there was nothing for young people when I was a kid, and now there's like 3 or 4 comedy nights in like they do it like there's a local theater they do it in the local pubs and everything, and it's just it's sort of like in such a competitive big market as the UK, it's sort of weird that even small towns are kind of opening up these places, and I have no idea where I was going with that, by the way. So if you've got anything to
I do love that about the UK is there's these tiny little towns that have a comedy night every week, and you're like, people go, because in New Zealand, if you had a tiny little town, you do a comedy night maybe once a month, and then if you went back the next month, they'd be like, well, we just saw comedy last month, why do we come again? But people here like really get around it, which is so nice. And I think comedians are always so resourceful, they're always setting up shows in the most you wouldn't think it kind of places, because they're just so keen to get that stage time, I guess, that they'll set up a gig anywhere, and yeah, people get around it so much here, which is so nice. Sorry, I've forgotten where I was going with this as well. What were you saying?
Hey, I can send you some links about ADHD if you're interested. Just just bring it.
Yeah, no, I do have ADHD.
I forget the secret handshake. We get distracted, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining me today. I just wanted to sort of ask a couple more questions, but first of all, like I love getting advice from people about kind of from their experiences, what they would say to someone getting into their field. So with stand-up comedy, you've had a very interesting route and you moved a country for it and everything. Like what kind of advice have you got for someone kind of wanting to get into comedy?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I think it is like any job, which people also forget that it is just it's a job, and just have fun and do the stuff that you enjoy. I think people get carried away with the grind, and you do have to grind, like any job. But if the grind is not serving you, maybe slow down and make sure you find that balance. Is probably my advice. But it's a great career to be a part of, and I think the best part about comedy is the other people who do it. So it's the other comedians and green rooms and stuff. So if you want to do it, just do it.
And where can they, ironically, for this interview, see you coming up?
Yeah, I know.
You've heard the voice now.
It hasn't come on at all. But I'm touring with Melanie Bracewell at the moment. She's going to be all over England. We're in Bristol tonight. We've got gigs in where are we going? Wellingborough, Maidstone, Portsmouth, some interesting places. And yeah, come along and see it. She's so funny, so funny. And I'll be opening for her if you want to come see me. And then I'll be in New Zealand at the New Zealand Comedy Festival in May.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today. Been loving chatting to you. Hopefully you come back to Southampton at some point.
Yeah, I like Southampton. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, sorry for sort of like technical issues today with the video or back ends. These things happen. Oh please, yeah. This
I don't know if it was me.
God knows, like the internet is a mysterious and wonderful thing. Usually, like if I've got a problem with a New Zealand or Australian comedian with the connection, it's because they're in the country. But like I thought it would be okay, but like I think it might just be like for some reason the internet just the British internet has a weird thing against New Zealand comedians, I think.
Yeah, maybe thinks I'm a spy. Well, it's lovely to meet you.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I'm in Dr. Squee. That was my show. Oh, sorry. And please do check out my interview with Ray O'Leary. Just go to the channel. Loads of interviews with comedians. I am so bad at plugging. Sorry, just get in halfway through my outro. But anyway, I've been Dr. Squee. That was my show. In a world where you can be truly anything, guys, please be kind. And for some reason, my video is not starting up now. So talk amongst yourselves. And be kind. See, slick as anything.